The NextGen Donors study is a one-of-a-kind study. It's the first study that captures the voices of our next generation, defined as 21 to 40-year-olds, subsets of both Gen X and Gen Y. They captured 300 voices in this study of high-capacity donors, and it tells us several things. One, it gives us a really good insight into the next gen, their values, the issue areas they care about. It tells us that they are similar to and starting to diverge from the other interest areas of the traditionalist donors as well as the baby boomers.
My name is Jason Franklin. I'm the executive director of Bolder Giving, which is a New York-based nonprofit that works to inspire people to give more, risk more, and inspire more. And I'm here in Seattle working with the Seattle Foundation on an ongoing partnership around how to engage Seattle donors to expand their giving.
The next generation is passionate, and they're engaged, and they're prepared, and they are ready to have these conversations with the older generations and really show that they can not only take the baton, but enhance and influence and move the values that they've learned so dearly from the older generation.
One of the things I thought was really interesting about the study was the shared and the different priorities that young donors had versus their parents and their grandparents. Education and children and families were shared values. They wanted to continue giving and prioritizing those same issues their parents did. But civil liberties, environment, advocacy, and organizing were much bigger priorities with younger donors. And healthcare, religion, and the arts, much less of a priority. So what it means for the organizations working in those different fields, and more broadly, what it means for our communities, given those changing priorities, is something I think everyone really needs to take a look at and think about.
So one of the great things that came out of this research is it highlighted that there are some emerging issues that the next generation has on animal welfare, the environment, and civil rights. But it also showed us some similarities, that the next generation is also very interested in education, youth and families, and basic needs. And again, this is a great opportunity for families to be able to start giving and learning from each other.
My name is Berman, and I own and run Material Good, a ceramic production company that makes Little Shirley vases. A Little Shirley vase is a bud vase by intention. They are named after my grandmother, Shirley Larson, who had cancer, and I started making and selling them in order to raise money for cancer research in her honor. We still donate 10% of our profits today, as well as partner with a different nonprofit monthly and donate 10% of one color to them every month, while creating awareness for their cause and mission, and them doing the same for us.
So I think if we're looking at King County and Next Gen givers, you see the influence of the technology industry. You see that in the issue areas, but also in the fact that young people are thinking about philanthropy as they're developing their businesses or as they're starting to earn wealth. They're giving a lot earlier.
91% of the respondents in this survey said they look at the websites of the groups they fund before they make a funding decision. Way higher than their parents or their grandparents. And I really think, I see it in myself, I see it in others, there's an expectation for information to be available. And if it's not available, if it's not well written, and if there's not a level of transparency, they're not going to fund the groups. And so it really is a change in behavior for a lot of nonprofits that used to say, we do good work, support us. And now it's, we do good work and here's the evidence of it, support us.
But really for me, I don't fund too much in the way of technology solutions. I think there's actually, thanks to a lot of generous people who have kind of been in the generation of computer scientists before me, I think there's actually a lot of funding for kind of bringing tech into the nonprofit world. So I'm looking for the things that people don't get, like sort of the more marginalized issues, and really figuring out how to reframe those in ways that people who get technology understand that, because there's a lot of people who've made a lot of money in the tech world at this point, and we all get how to apply technology. We don't necessarily get some of the old school solutions that still work great, but are just underfunded. So to me, the biggest question is actually, how can we get more tech money into things that are working and just need those extra funds?
There are countless people that act as mentors or role models in my life. Grandma Shirley is probably the biggest, given the fact that she was a small business owner herself. She was incredibly engaged in her community and extremely benevolent without being showy or the center of attention. But there are numerous people, family and friends in Seattle and abroad, that have really been hugely influential in creating what Material Good is today. My mother is another one. She now owns her own business and is an active part of her community. I look towards her a lot when questions come up about business or about involving elements of participating in our community. When questions come up about that, she's my go-to person.
When I ended up at Google and in a position where I had much more money than I need, my starting salary at Google was over $100,000. And that's more than either of my parents had ever made. So it was very clear to me I didn't need that money, and I was free to use at least some of it to give away. And it then just became a question of how much and for what. And that was something I struggled with for a couple of years, but really, once I found others who were willing to be generous, finding other people at Boulder Giving and at Resource Generation, that then really allowed me to be very bold. And so I live on about $36,000 a year, and I've shifted up to giving about 50% of my income. And part of that was really just seeing, it seemed pretty clear to me that it's very easy for your expectations about your, sort of your material quality of life. They simply accelerate. The more money you put into them, the more you adjust. And so I wanted to set a hard cap on kind of what I spend. So as all the years I've been working, I've been living at this spending about $36,000 level, which I live very comfortably. I eat out. I'm very, very happy, very taken care of. And so, but learning to live on that budget and stay on that budget, I felt has actually been wonderful for me, because it leaves me feeling much more able to, if something goes wrong at Google, or if I want to move into another field, I really have a lot of freedom. So some of my giving is really about freeing myself from the sort of ties to having a lot of material wealth.
I do consider myself a social entrepreneur, by happenstance almost. I think it's a real win-win for everyone, though. Businesses should do it more often, in my opinion, and I'm always wondering why they don't. It works for the business because not only can you feel good about what you're doing and really have an impact in your community, but retail stores love it on their end. They love being a part of a brand that is giving back and has a story and has a mission. Customers appreciate it because they feel, for those same reasons, that they're engaging through their purchase power in their community, whatever that may be to them. So it's a real win-win. I think it makes your product stand out in terms of business, and it's smart if you balance the bottom line with what you're doing.
I think that it is a great time to start talking to young people about giving together. I'd also like to encourage the older generations to let the younger generation's passions and interest areas influence their giving as well. And maybe that they want to do some work with their peer group, so let them create their own identity, but start having the conversations early, bring them along, tell them about the organizations that you care about and commit to.